As a creative, concept development is something you will definitely meet one way or the other. No matter what field of creativity or what field of art you're in, you have to develop concepts one way or the other, right? And for me, it had been a headache for a really long time trying to create a system where I'll be able to come up with concepts no matter the project was really difficult for me. And it even got to the point where I would sit for hours to develop something, only for someone to call me a couple of hours later after I posted it to tell me that it's really dope, but they've seen it somewhere before. And I'll go like what? Because in my mind, I was trying to aim for something so unique, something no one has seen before. And I ended up creating things that look very similar to things people have seen online. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I've learned to develop concepts from really tiny ideas to become big umbrellas of concepts that can later be distilled into smaller ideas and can be used for your project. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos all the time. Those of you who checked out the last video, I really appreciate your comments. I was super scared to post that one because I felt like I was sort of showing you guys too much, but people received it quite well, gave me a lot of inspiration and motivation to keep on going. So thank you to everybody who watched that video and commented in the comments. If you haven't seen that video, you can go back and check it out. So let's get going on this week's video. Concept development. So before I start, I'd like to say that we are talking about concept development in the context of photography. Nevertheless, you can still apply what I'm going to share with you to other fields of creativity like design, filmmaking, and other stuff like that. So let's start with concept development. Before that, I'm going to define what a concept is. According to Google, a concept is an abstract idea, something which isn't really tangible yet. I usually define a concept as a general approach to achieving something or to achieving a goal. Concepts are broad and most often not concrete, right? A concept describes what you want to do, but oftentimes not how to do it. This is where concept development comes in. To be able to take abstract ideas and turn them into something feasible. That is the process of concept development. In photography, I've noticed that there are two main outlets for concept development. The first usually being in advertising and activism. In advertising, usually this would be to sell a product or to market a business or some type of service. And there are tons and tons and tons of amazing artworks, amazing advertising pieces where photographs are used to really sell products in very unique ways. And in activism, this is where a creator usually uses a piece of visual imagery, strong visual imagery, to sort of send a message or speak for or against a certain cause. NGOs usually use this a lot to talk about things like social injustice, domestic violence, depression, and a whole lot of other things. A lot of business-oriented photographers will usually fall in this category. Under the category, the concepts are usually full-fledged ideas. They are developed to the teeth and they are very clear. They are very easily relatable and understandable because for them, their goal is to make sure that the message gets to the audience very quickly and uniquely. So for them, they usually make sure that the ideas in their concepts are very straightforward so people can understand them. So the second part is the art. In the art, these concepts are usually used as a channel for self-expression. So artists will usually develop certain concepts to tell people about how they feel or what they think about something. In this particular category, these artists are not really keen on making sure that their message is easily understood, but rather what they do is they make sure that you will need their interpretation for the work. So usually when you see photographs under this category, people will usually have to wait for the artist to talk about it in his own words, and most often these images are open to several interpretations. So these are like the two main outlets where concepts are being used the most in photography right now. Now the big question is, how do I develop a concept? For me, I came up with a simple guide, and what I do is I ask myself 4 questions: who, what, why, and how. These are the simple questions I always ask myself before I jump on any project to develop a concept. So the first question says who, usually refers to the audience of which my message is going to be addressed. The next question is what represents exactly what I want to say to those people, those audience I've already identified. The next question is why, which talks about the purpose in which I'm doing this entire thing. And the last question is how how it talks about the style of delivery. So is it going to be a black and white photograph? Is it going to be a photo manipulation? Is it going to be something? So like how this determines the style of photography that I'm going to use to execute whatever project that I have. To explain this simple guide, I'm going to use some of my old projects, two projects from 2017 and 2018, to sort of illustrate how I use this same who, what, why, and how guide to come up with a concept. This project was done for Silverbird at a time where the cinema wanted to create excitement around new releases and already existing ones. So that was the whole idea, to create excitement around that. And the initial concept was to shoot a series of photos that could depict everyday people enjoying cinema in the everyday way. But in a way that will be very exciting and captivating and can gain people's attention and retain their attention whilst they see these images. And to develop this concept into something feasible, I used the who, what, why, and how feature. So for the who, we're targeting people who in their demographic were usually people who would attend the cinema the most. And for that, we're looking at people who are in university and young adults, usually under the age of 35. And the what was to create excitement about watching movies with friends and family or couples and stuff like that. And the why was to generate sales and get a lot of attention for new releases and already existing ones. And the how was to use a mixture of both a pop art direction and a dramatic lightning style to draw your attention and retain it when you see these images. So this was like the blueprint to create this series of images. From this bigger concept, right, this helped us to sort of create smaller ideas or smaller pocket concepts in which we could create different moods and different styles to translate or talk to the same overall general idea. So the who helped us to gather the models based on their age and gender. The what made us know that we were going to stick to message. It gave us the topic of the entire shoot. The why always kept us on track because we knew the purpose of the shoot, and the how made us hone in on a particular style and how to achieve it. So from there, I hopped onto a storyboard to sort of draw out how everything is going to look like. And storyboards are super important because they help you visualize the set before you even start to shoot. So usually for storyboarding, I usually do it on my computer, maybe in Photoshop, or sometimes when I don't have access to my computer, I can just use a pen and a pencil to create small boxes or sort of envision the frame of the image and draw in the characters, the seats, where the lights will be, also like in a way to get the general idea of how the positioning of the shoot is going to be like. And this is how the images turned out. So for this very first image, the main idea was to sort of get a group of girls who regularly go to the cinema together. They're enjoying some popcorn and they all look really frightened or have some sort of shock based on the movie they're watching. And they're all eating popcorn. Now the interesting thing about this is because we're targeting people like themselves in the university, they were all girls, really random people, very diversified in terms of skin color. And also one very important thing is because we're trying to drive engagement towards new movies, the most immediate movie that was coming out was Fast 8 at the time. So that's why you would see that the popcorn boxes they're holding, you could see that Fast 8 was exactly what was on the two. On the two popcorn boxes to the girls to the left side. So that was a way to also throw emphasis on the type of movie that was coming. And the whole image has a really exciting yet dramatic feel, with the really red colored seats sort of puts you on edge and really draws you in directly to see what's going on. They were placed right in the center of attention. They're all looking towards the screen, and you can actually feel the intensity of the image just by looking at it. And this is an example of what I meant by using the who, what, and why to sort of craft a smaller idea from the general concept. This example falls in the category of advertising, how to sort of use concept to sell a product or to drive a message to certain people. The second one I'm going to show you is something which is a personal project which sort of falls under the arts. And for this, the image is pretty much not self-explanatory as compared to the previous ones. For this, you would sort of need my interpretation to let you understand what I wanted to communicate or the concept that I had in mind. So this is a project I worked on in 2018 called The World We All Forgot. And for this piece of imagery, the concept I had was to use people as a tool to tell the story of how Ghana has evolved. So for me, I was letting people talk about what they think have changed about Ghana and how the change has affected their lives, whether for the good or for the bad. There are two images now you see. You see one of a person who's like a silhouette, and the second image embedded in the first one. So the bigger image is the person who's narrating what they think have changed about Ghana. And I find the second image which talks about what he is talking about and put it inside his image, right? So the first one is this dude who's talking about how back then people used to enjoy their natural hair and girls used to be proud of their natural hair, but today people are usually relying on other things like weave and stuff like that. So for me, I was trying to look for a girl who was rocking her natural hair and embed it into his image so we can have a complete story. But for something like this, if I didn't explain the concept to you, you wouldn't really understand it. It might look like a creative art piece which might have meaning, but you wouldn't truly understand what I as the artist was going for. Oftentimes for people, even getting the initial idea is the problem, right? And there could be a million reasons why. I really can't sort of give you a magic word or magic potion that can give you the initial idea. But for me, sometimes what I recommend is for you to sort of take a step back from what you're doing, try and expose yourself to different experiences. You could even try watching some movies, listening to some music, watching some animes, reading some books, taking a stroll outside. There are a lot of things you could expose yourself to that could sort of inspire you, because you really have no idea when your next idea or where it's going to come from. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is even to step away from the internet, especially to step away from seeing other photographers' work if you have a project. It's really easy for us to hop on Pinterest to sort of gather ideas, but usually it goes into the long way of diluting the authenticity and the quality of your concept, and it makes it look as if you are trying to replicate someone else's work, which is not always the best. It's important to sort of refer to other work to help you know that you're on the right path, but usually that should come at the large stage after you've already developed your concept fully and you're looking for a style to execute it, but not in the first stage where you haven't. I was having a conversation with an arrest before making this video about this specific topic, and he said something that was really new to me. He talked about creators being deliberately inquisitive, and this really struck close to home, because I realized that for most of us, we create in curiosity. And that's often when you find people who come up with really original ideas, when they're really curious to figure out something and they end up stumbling upon a really creative idea or a really creative way to sort of explain a concept or execute a project. He also mentioned something about willingly limiting yourself to certain things. And in his words, sometimes he just limits himself to a few tools, maybe just a camera or a lens, to keep him boxed in, so his mind is forced to think and to execute on a different level. When it comes to things like this, I usually talk to Naresh because he has an aptitude for really going in depth on topics. I've mentioned his name on this channel before, and I'm going to add his channel in the description so you guys can check him out. He's a really deep thinker when it comes to things like this, and I really appreciate his feedback on things like that. So before I end this video, I would like to share a few works from some Ghanaian photographers who are using concepts to guide their work in different fields, from advertising to commercial architecture to landscape to storytelling, to conceptual photography, to even people who are using things like their iPhones to create really awesome images. Yeah, so that's it. This is my simple formula for developing concept from really tiny ideas into umbrellas where you can distill more ideas and more concepts from to complete your project. Thank you so much for watching this. If you have any other way you do it, something that works for you, I would really love to know. You can share it in the comments below so other people can learn from that too. For me, this is what works. I'm still in the process of discovering more and finding other ways to express myself in terms of concept development. I recently read something called the CSA rule, which really works in advertising and really explained by another channel on YouTube. I'm going to link it down below. It has super amazing content for graphic designers. And day in, day out, you end up reading an article somewhere where somebody is talking about concept development, and it always goes like, it always makes me know that it's an ever-growing topic. Concepts are really difficult to nail in. Sometimes all you need to save your project is a really dope concept. So it's not so easy to come up with a really amazing concept that can help you execute. Usually you find people doing crazy things, but sometimes they don't really have a concept behind it, and it works because it has a really interesting visual style. So that's something you have to pay attention to not confuse a visual style with a concept. A lot of photo manipulations can fall under a visual style that have a certain aesthetic that pulls you in, but does not really have a strong concept, or sometimes does not even have a concept at all. So you would have to sort of take your time, do some research, and make sure that you are mainly answering the questions, the 4 main questions, to make sure your project is very meaningful in that sense of the word. So thank you guys for coming back again to watch this video. I'll see you next week.